Hey folks, it's Mr. Markart, here to explain a little bit more about the Finances tab to the Supervised Agricultural Experience, or SAE. Um, Currently, right now, you should have this instructions with the finances posted on Google Classroom. Another good helpful tab to have up is also the SAE portfolio, which looks something like this. And eventually you'll pull up some other different things as well here to get us started. So when we go through here, finances, because believe it or not, there is a lot of money that moves through this classroom, but we don't necessarily see it all the time. And so hopefully this activity can be able to kind of shine some light to that and give you a glimpse at what it takes to kind of run a lab-based classroom like here. So in the instructions, it's asking you to do one of two different things. You're going to pick either you're going to run your financial records as an independent project. So you're creating a list of independent expenses, or you're going to do it as a dependent classwork project. The independent expenses would be if you would want to do your SAE on if you own like a small business or if you work in a job in agriculture. So if you flip burgers at McDonald's, or if you work on the line at Culver's, or if you do some farmhand work outside, something that immediately connects with agriculture. Or if you garden a little in the background, if you're raising a dog and you want to use that as your SAE experience, you certainly can use that. You're just then going to run the finances based on that project. The most of you are going to probably say, I don't really have a job in agriculture, Mr. Markart, but guess what? You did do agricultural experience and worked with finances through our summative labs in class. So most of you are going to pick this purple line, which is create a list of dependent classroom assets of the summative lab of your choice. So just keep that in mind, that eventually we're going to be using that. You're going to pick a lab that you did in this class, and you're going to run a financial spreadsheet based on the materials we used for that. Cool. So that's step one. Step two, you're going to set up your SAE portfolio pages. So to go through and do that, you're doing part 2 and 3 here. Similar to what we've seen before in the past, you're just going to do some copying and pasting of some of the instructions here. So again, I'm going to highlight over this. My keyboard shortcut to copy is Control-C. And I'm going to go into my portfolio, and I'm going to double click here to get a text box. Put myself a text box, Control-V to paste. That's that there. I'm going to go back to my instructions. I'm going to copy across my list of dependent classroom assets, Control-C for that, and put it over into my portfolio. Control-V. I'm just going to trim up my spaces a little bit. Cool. So right now you should have something like this in your portfolio. I've got all of my pages kind of, or all of my text printed there, and I'm set to go. My next little step is I'm going back to my instructions. There are 2 links here, and I want you to open both of them up. One of them is going to be a list of materials used in all of our agri-science classes. It's going to be a pretty long list, and it seems like a lot, but don't kind of freak out. We'll find the class that fits us best, and we'll take it from there. The other link, I'm going back to my instructions, is going to be my financial spreadsheet template. And you'll notice here, it's got like this kind of version. I can briefly see the outside of this, but I really can't add anything in unless if I use template. That kind of sets me up there. I'm good to go for that. And that sets me up then for my next steps, step 6 and 7. First, I'm going to pause and let you guys kind of take a breather. Make sure you get up to that step, that you have all of these tabs open up for everybody. Welcome back, folks. All right. You've got all of your tabs open. You've come now to a choice. Step 6 and 7 are asking you one of 2 different things. For the step 6, if you chose independent expenses as the thing that you want to use for your supervised agricultural experience, you're just going to use your financial spreadsheet as a way to like keep track of your finances with that job. So you're going to add your income. If you worked at McDonald's, you're going to put down your pay stubs for this income. If you had to pay for your uniform, you'd put it under expenses, and then you would run your numbers that way. Okay. There'll be a few of you that might choose that, or if you're interested in applications with the FFA, let me know. We can certainly get you on the right track for that. But most of you folks are going to be doing step 7, so that purple kind of option. Just know that most of you guys are going to do that kind of route. And in that case, you're going to choose a summative lab from the agri-science class that you had this trimester, and you're going to copy and paste the materials from the asset list and put them into that spreadsheet template under expenses. Oh, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot that kind of goes here. And so we'll kind of break that apart here. So if I go back into my asset list, I'm going to pick which class kind of fits me best. So let's say, for instance, I'm going to choose wildlife. If I've got wildlife, I've got a couple different options as I scroll to the side here of summative labs that we've done this year. So I'm going to pick one of the summative labs and then tell me what materials it took to make that summative lab possible. So for instance, I'm going to use the activated charcoal lab. I'm going to go back through then, and I'm going to put, again, under operating expenses. From there, I'm going to end up putting in my materials from my asset list into my spreadsheet, depending on what type of asset they fall under. So I have 2 types of assets. First type is consumable. This means that I'm using it up within the class period, and oftentimes I'm throwing it away at the end of the period. So in that case with the charcoal lab, I used up that charcoal. I'm not going to reuse that, or Mr. Markhart's not going to keep that for the next time. He's going to just ask us all to kind of throw that away or bring it home. The second type of asset is going to be non-consumable. This is the type that he'll keep year after year and keep reusing that for other people. So in that case, it could have been the coffee cup. It could have been the spoons, other things that aren't going to go into the garbage, and I'll keep reusing. I'm going to go back onto my asset list, and I'm going to look and see, okay, charcoal, I see that it's consumable. So I'm going to highlight over the parts that I knew for sure I used in that lab. And it seems like I had everything except for the Miracle-Gro yeast. That must be from some other different labs. So I'm not going to copy and paste that across. Control-C and pasting it into Control-V. And that should paste pretty nicely. As you'll notice here, and I scroll down, I've already got some formulas that automatically calculate that for you of the totals. That'll be helpful when we figure out what's called our net, or the figure between our income and our expenses. I'll explain later. That's my consumable. I'm going to go back then and find out what are some assets I used that were non-consumable. So metal scissors and tying vise, that was not used in the lab, so I'm not going to put it in. I'm going to select only the stuff that I would have used just for that. So I'm just going to highlight over, Control-C, and put it back into my non-consumable, Control-V. And I don't know if you necessarily can see that past my face, but that's all copied across there. And as we scroll down, we see that this number is automatically calculated for us here. Your next bit is where it starts getting a little tricky. You've got all of these expenses that was part of your project, was part of your labs, but you yourself did not pay for them. So who did? It certainly didn't come out of Mr. Markhart's pocket, certainly not financially stable enough to be able to fund all of that stuff, but it did come from somewhere. And so we do want to account for that whenever we do financial spreadsheets, and we want to make sure that it's shown where that research funding came from. So again, as I'm looking into my instructions, a very good clarification that you want to know is that since you were not literally paid, you are instead given just a granted financial opportunity through the high school to do your research. We have to account for that as something we call Mr. Markhart's labor exchange. And so what that means essentially is that should you do the lab, the school then compensates the materials or the price of the materials. The taxpayers pay that money toward the budget, that the agri-science department has, and then gives you the opportunity to be able to do the research and pay for that kind of experience, all in exchange for your labor, obviously, to do the said lab. So we're going to compensate it that way. How that looks is that we need to have the Mr. Markart's labor exchange meet the exact number as we see in our operating expenses. So if I scroll down here and I see these two numbers, so my consumable total and my non-consumable total, I'm going to quickly add up what those totals are and then be able to put them into my income tab. So here we see Mr. Markart's labor exchange. My amount is then going to be whatever the total of these two things are. So I'm pulling out my phone real quick so I can get these added. In this example, 4828 plus 421, 31. I got 460 something. So I'm going to put that into my income here as 469.59. Press enter. This should automatically compute. And now at this point, we should have everything all set. And the way we can tell, the way any good spreadsheet will have, is your income should match your expenses in what's called the net, or the total at the end. So if I click on this third tab here, it's going to show me to a purple little slide. I've got my income automatically computes into there, which was 469. My expenses are automatically computed there too. There's my subtotals from consumables and non-consumables. And at the end of the day, I have $0, which I have a little note there that says, okay, yeah, it automatically computes itself. It should equal 0 if I am doing dependent classwork, which makes sense because you folks were not paid a single dime to be into this class. You are not going to be charged anything for this class. You come out 0, and that makes sense for research. And a lot of times for a lot of researchers, they just have to use up whatever money they're granted from whatever educational facility that they're in, much like what you guys are doing. What that means is we can take this then. We are on the home stretch. I'm going to press the green share button so I can get a shareable link. I'm going to take that bad boy. The wonders of Google, it's already copied for me, so that's there. I go into my portfolio under my finances tabs. This was copied and pasted earlier. I'm going to highlight over this. My keyboard shortcut for hyperlinking is Control-K. I had my link, Control-V to paste, press enter, and it's there. To double check, I can go back into this, click on this, and it should reload up my financial spreadsheet, which works well. I'm going to press publish to make sure that that's there. And ladies and gents, that is how you do finances.